Perception. Perception is a way of regarding, understanding, or interpreting something, a mental impression. Perceptions or impressions of people usually come without fully knowing the person and can often be wrong. You can be mistaken in your thinking of them. Marie Antoinette is a prime example. The people of France accused her of being licentious and portrayed her as a harpy. They had called her extravagant, frivolous, arrogant, and insensitive to the sufferings of her people. Not only that, but a nymphomaniac, rapacious in her lust for men and women, continuously cuckolding her weak husband, King Louis XVI. They blamed her for the country's financial ruin. They had a misguided perception of her to campaign against the monarchy. You may have even thought of the same things, but it is completely erroneous. Marie and her actions were not so evil. She was just misunderstood. Marie Antoinette, née Maria Antonia, was born on November 2nd, 1755, in Vienna, Austria, as the 15th and second youngest child of Empress Maria Therese, and Holy Roman Emperor Francis I. She was born an Austrian princess and an Archduchess of Austria. At the time of her birth, there was great unrest for the monarchies of Europe, and her family was no exception. It had been questioned and resisted ever since her mother took the Habsburg throne, causing many wars and infecting the life of her daughter primarily. Marie most definitely did not live the typical childhood that we are used to. Although she did live relatively carefree and receive the typical education of an 18th century aristocratic girl, her childhood was seriously lacking. By the time she was 10 years old, she could barely write in German or use any other language that was commonly used at court. She was illiterate and did not know history, geography, or spelling. Then, in 1766, when Marie was 11, her mother promised her to the King of France's grandson, Louis Auguste, the Dauphin of the time, to solidify an alliance between France and Austria against Prussia. Young Marie was just a pawn. In 1770, when Marie was just 15 years old, she married Louis via proxy in Austria, and in order to go to France, converted everything Austrian about her to French. Once there, they held a lavish and grandiose second ceremony in the royal chapel. Marie was never regarded in these matters. She was nothing but a token for her mother for politics. All of Maria Therese's letters to her daughter primarily consisted of practical advice, moral exhortation, and dire warnings, each one concerning Marie's place in the monarchy of France. And so, Marie did not adjust well to her new life as a wife. In other words, she was ill-prepared, which was evidenced by her extreme homesickness. How do you think that you would feel in such a situation? Angry or sad just like her? The newlyweds could not have been any different. When they had first met, it had been like a hot girl meets a nerd. She was bored by him, and he was afraid of her. Marie Antoinette was a vivacious and bold social butterfly, and Louis was introverted and indecisive, a lover of solitary pleasures like locksmithing. They were exact opposites, and they did not attract. So it is no wonder as to why they did not consummate the marriage at their wedding or for years after, don't you think? The sexless marriage spurred Marie's mother to pester her endlessly. When the marriage had begun, so did Marie's spotlight. Whenever she woke up, she was watched. Whenever she ate, she was watched. Wherever and whatever she did, she was watched. The whole of the French court and perhaps the world was watching her, and so it was no wonder that she started doing the things that she did, the partying and the gambling and the spending, especially when whatever she wanted was at her feet. Added reasons come from the pressure of not bearing an heir and her husband not living up to what he should have. So what if she lived in a way that we can't commend? She had to put her best foot forward and make an impression on the people that surrounded her for the sake of her livelihood and to make life for herself as bearable as possible. Then, in 1774, Louis XV died, and Louis Auguste succeeded him to the French throne as Louis XVI, making Marie queen at only 19 years old. Both of them were young for the position that had just been handed to them. Neither of them had the education or the experience. Louis wasn't raised to be a queen, and Marie wasn't raised to be anything. Upon taking the throne, the responsibilities that Marie had were next to none. the French government focused solely on men, so that she then turned even more to partying. After another 4 years had passed, she had her first child, Marie Therese, to which there were also spectators, and as such would be for the other three children she would bear. Marie will see two of them die. As a gift for this labor, Louis gave Marie a retreat where she would, as I'd like to say, get down to her roots or the roots of her country and play like a farmer's wife or a handmaid. Marie got another retreat when she had her second child, but this time because it was male. This retreat, Petit Trianon, was a small private castle on palace grounds. Not much can be said of her life after her first child until 1785, when a woman posing as she stole a 647 diamond necklace, which permanently tarnished her name, and in 1789, with the beginning of the revolution to which Marie was astonished. She could not comprehend the actions of the common people when they weren't mourning her son, the Dauphin, as he had just died. Then in October of that year, she was forced to step in and try to save the French monarchy, whose destruction had started with Louis XIV. While held captive, she had tried to escape with her family in June of 1791, but they were caught. In September of that year, Louis XVI agreed to uphold a new constitution drafted in return for keeping his symbolic power. However, in September 1792, the monarchy was abolished and France became the French Republic. So in January of 1793, Louis XVI was dragged to the guillotine and executed. And in less than a year after a 2-day trial, Marie was executed just like her husband. Marie Antoinette was the last queen of France and had been vilified as the personification of the evils of monarchy and the pinnacle of beauty. She had been perceived in such a way a villain, perhaps best captured by the famous, although most certainly fictitious story that upon hearing that the people had no bread to eat, she remarked, "Let them eat cake." This was to spur the people into action, which most certainly happened with the revolution. This perception, as I hope you to believe, with the legitimate facts that I presented to be false, just as I did with my siblings when their friends had told lies about them. Because after all, Marie Antoinette wasn't bad. She was just misguided and misunderstood, leading to mistaken perceptions, never having been taught right.